Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast, though it might still be a little bit serious today. Before I start, I really need to give a deep, heartfelt thanks to all of you. Last week's podcast was not an easy thing for me to record, and the response that I got from all of you was humbling and very touching, and it meant the world to me. I mean, first, I was amazed at the number of people that watched that particular podcast. There were more views of that podcast in 2 days than most of my podcasts get in their entire lifespan. And on top of that, there were 500 comments, actually over 500 comments in the first 2 days. And so many of them, in fact, all but just a couple, were so very supportive of my situation, having sent Connor off to boot camp that day. So many people with similar experiences. I didn't know I had so many military families that follow me. So I'm very, very grateful for the response that this got, and it's probably something I'll talk more about, not the video, but the experience of Connor being away. It's been a rough handful of days, and it's not something I kind of want to talk about right now. Well, it's still feeling pretty raw. But I think with hindsight, maybe I can give some advice to other people that are going through something similar. And with that, we will move into our podcast. But first, coffee. Oh, that's hot. Also, this is a Yeti clone. I tell you, you can tell the difference. The seal on a Yeti, airtight. This thing, I feel like I'm drinking out of a dribble cup. So I don't know how this year's been going for all of you, but one of the common phrases that I'm hearing is the quarantine 15. And I have experienced that myself. I've been trying to figure out exactly what caused it so that I could fix it. I haven't really changed the way I eat, which is to say it's sort of a lazy keto. I don't actually track my macros at all, and I've got a pretty good feel for what 20 grams of net carbs is per day. I do measure my blood ketones and my blood glucose on a daily basis, and those have stayed consistent. I've stayed in ketosis. I haven't gone out of ketosis at all, yet I've put on about 15 pounds. And my first hypothesis is that it could be cortisol related, that just the stress of what's going on in the world, the stress of having my son and his girlfriend and my grandson living here, and just some other life things. Haven't been sleeping well, and a lot of insomnia. So I suspect that may be a contributor. It's also possible that I've just been a little bit too lazy with my keto. And maybe I need to get back to specifically tracking my macros on a daily basis. Probably that's what I need to do until I get back down to my target weight again. The other thing, though, is now with Connor off at boot camp and with Colton over here about half of the week and Jaden, my son's girlfriend, only here a couple of nights a week, it makes my schedule a lot simpler. It makes it a lot easier for me to do what I want to do, whether that's workout, cook, whatever. Meditate. And my hope is that, well, it can't be a hope. It needs to be a goal. My goal is that through implementing a more rigorous schedule, a little more discipline around my keto, I can get back down to my target weight. One of the things I do plan on doing probably the first or second week of October is an extended fast. And if I do that, it's going to be one of these things where I kick off and we'll use the comment section as sort of a support for one another if you want to join in and be part of that. Whether you just want to hop on for a day, 2 days, I haven't decided how long I'm going to go. Whether I'm going to go for the 100-hour or a 5-day or something shorter. I've read differing opinions on what's the ideal effectiveness for a fast. But if you're thinking about maybe doing an extended fast, I would say plan on that first or second week of October. That's when I'm going to do it, and we can all do it as a team. For those of you in Canada, I've had a couple of you mention to me that you've gotten out onto Amazon.ca and you see that the Pro Mix puffs are out there, the protein puffs, both the unflavored and the chocolate. I would ask, if you can, hold off for a week or so before buying them. Pro Mix wants to make sure that Amazon is fully stocked and capable of handling any sort of surge in orders that might be caused when I make an official announcement with a coupon code. And I'm probably going to make that announcement next week. So that will be a one-time use coupon for 10% off your entire order of Pro Mix nutrition products through Amazon.ca. So tune in next week's podcast. I'm going to give you that code. A couple of podcasts ago, I made a little joke about going to the dentist. I actually, truly went to the dentist this past week. I had not been to the dentist in probably 3 years or more, which probably made some of you grimace a little bit. But what happened, I had a doctor that I really liked. He was super cool, great sense of humor, but he was getting close to retirement and a big dental corporation bought him out, and suddenly things just felt different. There was lots more paperwork. They were always shuffling around the dental hygienists, like from location to location. And eventually, my dentist decided he was tired of that. He would rather be out playing golf. I don't blame him. And he retired. Then I found that this particular dental operation became kind of like a fast food chain. It just didn't feel warm or friendly or personal to me at all. Every time I went, there was a different dentist. Every time I went, there was a different hygienist. Every time I went, there was a different receptionist. And every time I went, it seemed like they had new paperwork for me to fill out. So I just kind of quit going. And then with the whole COVID thing, all the dentists kind of got shut down for a while. And then once they started up, they had this huge backlog. So it took a long time for me to get in to see this new dentist. And I told him that it had been 3 years since I had seen a dentist. And he made, well, I can't tell if he made a face. I'm assuming he made a face. He had an N95 mask on. But there was a look in his eyes of concern, like, what kind of damage are we going to discover in Steve's mouth? So because it was a new dentist, it was a very comprehensive review. They did, the full mouth x-ray from every different angle. And then, the dentist gets in and he's poking around at my gums and my teeth, just everywhere, checking out, how much my gums had receded and, all these measurements. He's calling out all this stuff that I don't understand at all to his hygienist who's, taking notes. And he gets done and he says, I don't know what to tell you. I literally have nothing to tell you. Everything is fine. Your mouth looks great. There's no plaque. There's no tartar. Your gums look fantastic. I got nothing. Do you have any questions? And I said, yes. As a matter of fact, I do. Because I do keto, and I'm wondering if you've noticed this in other patients that do keto. And he said, absolutely. There is absolutely a correlation. If more of my patients did keto, I would be a lot less busy. This is coming straight from a dentist. And he said it's not just the sugars and the grains, but it's also all the processed food. I talk about the nutritional wasteland that is the center of a grocery store where most people get their food. And all of this processed stuff, they're stripping out nutrition and they're putting in other stuff. And that other stuff is not good for your body in total. It's not good for your mouth either. So it was very cool to discover that my dentist is a keto advocate. His receptionist also was keto and then fell off the keto wagon and was excited to get back on keto. And the oral hygienist also then was excited to start doing keto. So kind of building up the audience here, hopefully. Anyhow, unlike most dentist experiences in my life, which have generally been unpleasant, telling me things that need to get fixed or crowned or whatever, this was pretty cool. It was pretty great. Next up, I need to get my annual physical, which I kind of postponed due to the whole coronavirus thing as well. And I'm thinking probably after I do, my little weight loss thing and fast, I'll probably get something scheduled. I'm going to be really excited to see what my blood test results are like, because the last time I had my physical, I had only been doing keto, 3-4 months, and already my LDL was down, my HDL was up, my triglycerides were down. I've told the story in one of my transition videos. My doctor came in at that point and shook my hand and said, whatever you're doing, keep it up. So I have kept it up, and I'll be very, very excited to see what my results look like the next time around. Now, a number of you caught some of the Easter eggs in last week's little podcast. One of them was my mispronunciation or misremembering of the boss in Office Space. It's Bill Lumberg, not Bill Lumberton. I think I'm thinking Lumberton because back when I used to work for an electronics company, when I would teach lean and continuous improvement, one of our factories was down in Lumberton, Mississippi, and that's probably why it's in my brain. I'm going to save the other little Easter egg for the very end of this podcast. Hopefully by then my grandson, Colton, will be up from his nap and we can share that Easter egg with you at the end of this video. But right now we're going to take a brief break and then we're going to come back and talk about something near and dear to my heart: sensible keto. I received a comment from one of my viewers a couple of days ago. Maybe it was even yesterday. I don't know, this week has really been a bit of a blur for me. They said in the comments that they did not like the term dirty keto. And as I thought about it, I realized I really don't like that either. It kind of attaches sort of a shame around doing keto not the perfect way. There are certain groups of people within the keto world. You've got lazy keto, which I would probably call myself. I think lazy keto is pretty safe to do once you've been doing keto for a while, and especially when you're in maintenance phase. My definition of lazy keto is you're not tracking macros, or if you are, you're just tracking carbohydrates or net carbohydrates. But you're not getting down into the nitty-gritty of, how many grams of protein did I have today? How many grams of fat did I have today? Oops, I better make sure that I have a fat bomb just to get my fat where it needs to be. I absolutely believe that when you are in weight loss mode, that the more meticulous you are about tracking your macros and tracking your food intake and keeping a food journal or keeping it in Carb Manager or something like that, I think you're going to see a lot more success. So it totally makes sense to do that. If you've reached your goal and you feel like you've got a pretty good handle on what your macros are, at least your carbohydrates, and can just go through the day doing what you do and staying in ketosis, then that makes sense. Another keto group is dirty keto, and you can be dirty and lazy at the same time. Dirty keto is less concerned about the makeup of the food, the ingredients in the food, so long as the carbs stay where the carbs should be, typically 20 net grams or lower. Now you could probably be very dirty keto and still be not lazy, whatever the opposite of lazy is. Diligent keto, so dirty, diligent keto. You could go and take some of the Aldi zero net carb bread or the stuff from Costco, throw on some Hellmann's mayonnaise with soybean oil, some Oscar Mayer mystery meat bologna, and you're probably getting the macros relatively dialed in there. Of course, you got a lot of stuff in there that's processed and not all that good. Then you have your clean keto folks. Now this is sort of the ideal state, that everything you're eating is sort of perfect, non-GMO, grass-fed, pasture-raised, etc., etc. And not everyone has access to that. Not everyone can afford that. Not everyone has the time or energy to prepare all of their own food and may need to rely on prepackaged items. But if you're able to do this, yeah, I admit that's sort of the ideal state for keto. The problem is, I find that a lot of people that fall into that category also feel that it's their moral obligation to tell everybody else that they're doing keto wrong. You're doing lazy keto. You're doing dirty keto. There are others that say there's no such thing as dirty or lazy keto. You're either doing keto or you're not doing keto. You're doing it my way or you're not doing it. And I have very, very little tolerance for dogmatic attitudes. I don't care if it's food, I don't care if it's exercise, I don't care if it's sports, I don't care if it's religion. To people that feel that they should be telling other people how to live, how to eat, take care of your own business, is what I would say. And then try and view life through a slightly more empathetic lens. Maybe some people aren't doing keto your way because they can't afford to do keto that way. So should we shame them? Should we shame them away from keto so that they don't do it all? Which is better? That they do your perfect, clean, dogmatic keto or nothing? Or that they get it partway there and that they can still enjoy some of the benefits of keto? In fact, probably enjoy most of the benefits of keto. The weight loss, the energy, the improved focus, the just myriad health benefits. And this is one of the reasons why a number of months ago I changed the little tagline at the bottom of the Serious Keto logo to say, Serious Cooking, Sensible Keto. What is sensible keto? It varies. It varies per person. What is sensible for me, being somewhat lazy keto, would not be sensible for a type 1 diabetic. I have viewers out there that have told me that they can only do 10 grams of total carbs per day. Now, for me, I wouldn't enjoy that, and I don't need to do that. So for me, that's not sensible. If you're trying to lose weight, if you're in that phase of keto, then tracking all of your macros is sensible. Ultimately, what I'm saying is sensible keto comes down to you, the individual. What works for you? What is sustainable for you? And this can change over time. For me, I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, I was a little cavalier about a few food items when I first started keto. I didn't really get all that worked up about soybean oil. Now, I cut a very wide path around it because I did some research and I decided that's one of the things, that's some dirt that I just don't want. It doesn't make sense to me. It's inflammatory. It causes me pain in my knees, in my joints. So I'm going to stay away from that. Sensible keto can evolve for each of us and evolve at our own pace. We don't need people telling us that we're doing it wrong. We don't need people trying to make us feel bad when we're trying to do something good for ourselves. And this all kind of comes back into something that I've said before, which is about ownership. I mention it when I'm talking about like blood glucose and ketone readings, that you need to own that. Sure, I can test myself when I'm doing a review and show you how it affects me, but that isn't going to tell you how it's going to affect you. So, get yourself a Keto Mojo or whatever kind of monitor and test yourself and own that. Keep a food diary, a food journal, and see how certain things affect you. You need to own what you put into your body. And to that end, you and I need to own what is sensible keto for ourselves. We don't own it for anybody else but ourselves. And if you're super clean keto and that works for you, if you're vegan keto and that works for you, whatever you are, if it works for you, that is awesome. That is sensible. And I respect that. But I don't respect when people try and tell other people that they're doing keto wrong, because we should be welcoming them. I'll sort of close with a bit of a metaphor. Imagine if you join some club. Maybe it's a club based around a hobby of some sort, whether it's crochet or chess or gardening or learning to play guitar, any of these things. And the instructor keeps telling you, no, you're doing it wrong. No, that's wrong. You can't do it that way. At some point, you would just throw your hands up and say, you know what, forget it. This is too much work. I'm getting tired of being told that I'm doing it wrong. I give up. I never want someone to be turned off from keto by this channel or by the people that comment on this channel. So help me out. Own yourself. Don't try and own others. Respect others. Respect their choices. Respect that they are an adult. That to me is sensible keto. And with that, here is what was on the stool behind me last week. And that is it for this podcast. As always, thank you for listening or watching.